Shalom, family. This is Yuda Yasharel. The title today for this lesson is More Question Than Answers. Not too long ago, I did a lesson on the Pangea, and I was really hoping that that would pretty much solve the equation. But somehow, it seems to always miss the ears of a bunch of people. And so I get flooded with questions about something that I figure most people should already know. You know, you have to study for yourself. I agree that teachers, so to speak, should help where they can. But for the most part, it is your duty, your responsibility to dive in, look up, research. If you did that, you would ask me far less questions. I'm one person answering many people, and it's frustrating and it's overwhelming. But I do what I can to give the answers as best that I can. So I had a commenter. I'm not sure if they are subscribed to the channel or not, but they are asking questions about the divisions of the continent. Now, let me say something here. One of the main reasons why there are so many questions is because most of our people are tied to one book. Most of our people have been brainwashed to believe, don't read Jubilees, don't read Enoch, don't read Jasher, don't read Baruch, don't read Maccabees, because they have been programmed to believe these books are fake. What did you expect from a people, a nation, who intends to misguide and mislead you? What did you expect? Do you think they're going to tell you the truth? It's up to you to go find that. They're not going to give it to you. And it's hidden right in plain sight. But they have plagued it with the thought of, oh, this is an evil book. Oh, this is pseudographical. All this mess. That's what they do when they don't want you to touch it. If I tell you this piece of cold steel is hot, you're going to question whether you should touch it or not. And most of you won't touch it because you were told it's hot. That is the way they scared you away from finding what was hidden. It's not hidden under a rock or behind a wall. It's right in your face. So how did they hide it? They told you this book is fake. It's pseudographic. And we bought it just like we buy everything else they sell us. So what happens? It creates arguments because most people are stuck in one book, and most of those books are King James, which is the most mistranslated book on the planet. And they don't want to venture far away from that book. So when you tell them something that they should know, they question you from top to bottom because the mistranslation in King James is far undetailed. So you don't have the answers. You have just enough to make you dangerous. You need to go to these other books. If you did, then you wouldn't be asking so many questions. For one thing, if you go to Amos chapter 1 and verse 1, it's pretty much telling you this is kind of what happened. So I took the liberty to put up the images of the Pangea. This is the way the continents were in the beginning. Every piece of land was connected. This explains how Israel walked into Egypt on foot, on dry land. So how did they end up having to go into slavery again, into Egypt? Only this time they had to go by ships. Why? Because this happened. Let me give you a better view. This is before the modern map. This is before the Great Quake or the separation of continents. This is after. You see this water in between the land masses? That's why Israel could not walk into Egypt this time, because Egypt floated away and is now North America. That's why there was a need for ships. That's why the Most High says, I will send you back to Egypt again, this time by ships. He was telling you then, you can't walk into Egypt now. You got to go on these slave ships. So I did a little research and I come up with this. Now, this 300, 200 million years thing, I don't pay much attention to that because I don't believe in the man's date cycle. I don't believe in the way they date things. But I'm going to read it anyway. From about 300 to 200 million years ago, late Paleozoic era until the very late Triassic, the continent we know now as North America was contiguous with Africa, South America, and Europe. They all existed as a single continent called Pangaea. Pangaea first began to be torn apart when a three-pronged fissure grew between Africa and South America and North America. Now, y'all keep focused. They all existed as a single continent. Rifting began as magma welled up through the weakness in the crust, creating a volcanic rift zone. Volcanic eruptions spewed ash and volcanic debris across the landscape as these severed continent-sized fragments of Pangaea diverged. The gash between the spreading continents gradually grew to form a new ocean basin, the Atlantic. The rift zone, known as the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, continued to provide the raw volcanic materials for the expanding ocean basin. Meanwhile, North America was slowly pushed westward away from the rift zone. The thick continental crust that made up the new East Coast collapsed into a series of downdrop fault blocks that roughly parallel these coastlines. At first, the hot faulted edge of the continent was high and buoyant relative to the new ocean basin. As the edge of North America moved away from the hot rift zone, it began to cool and subside beneath the Atlantic Ocean. This once active divergent plate boundary became the passive trailing edge of westward moving North America. In plate tectonic terms, the Atlantic plane is known as a classic example of a passive continental margin. Today, the Mesozoic and Cenozoic sedimentary rock layers that lie beneath much of the coastal plains and fringing continental shelf remain nearly horizontal. Why am I telling you this? Because if you read Amos 1 and 1, he's telling you this happened 2 years. It was something going on with the kings in Amos. And 2 years after that, this happened. Okay, so the message that I want y'all to get from this is, y'all, like I said, I don't mind answering questions, but you know how many people, I don't get good sleep at night. I don't hardly get to rest. And it's enough chaos when I'm putting these lessons together. And then when I'm done, I get all these questions because nobody's willing to do the work. What do you think I get this from? I have to work. I have to work. I have to dig this up. I have to go research. I have to try to compare notes. You got to do something on your own. And if you did, then there wouldn't be nearly as many questions as there would be answers. This is how you get your answers. One person asked me, where does it say that in the scripture? If you're reading the King James, you are never going to see it. So then when you hear it from me, you got all these questions because your book don't say it. That's because you're in the wrong book. King James Version book was not written for Israel. It was written for the Queen of England. So it won't benefit you. It leaves too many details out. So where are the details that helps us understand what really happened? It's in the books that they told you were fake. That's where it is. So drop these King James and all this other new translations and all that crap. Go get the books that was intended for you to read. And then you can start to help me answer some of these questions. But as it stands right now, I'm worn out. And most of the time, I find myself having to reply to these questions on my phone. Look, I'm almost 70 years old. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. And I cannot keep focusing on that little phone with these little tiny words trying to answer your question when you could just go look it up. Why do you think I tell y'all all the time, get these books? If you get these books, that will eliminate a lot of questions and provide a lot of answers. When you start comparing these books one to another, and then the Septuagint, you will see the whole world opens up and information starts to pour in, and then it all starts to make sense. And that's what you really want, right? You want it to make sense. Well, you can't make it make sense without the details that's supposed to be included. I don't mind answering questions, don't get me wrong. But you know, when you're answering 15 to 20 questions a day and all of them are different and they're coming at all times of the day and night, you tend to get tired. I want y'all to have these answers, but you're going to have to do some work. I can't do it for you because all you're going to do is continue to ask me questions. If you do the work yourself and you get these books that you think are fake, watch and see, don't you start to see it make sense. There was a time when I thought they were fake too. And I was just as misguided as I could be until I got these books and decided, well, let me see for myself. That's our problem. We take the nation's word for it. We don't go and say, well, let me see for myself. You know, I hear you telling me it's fake, but let me check it out. Let me see what it's saying. So from now on, people, listen closely. The reason these books were hidden from you is because it is full of details. And a lot of those details tells you about them. That's what they don't want you to know. So rather than try to change every book, they just chose which one to take out. And they figured they'll never check. That's Israel's nature. We don't check nothing. Unless a teacher tells us that's what you're doing is wrong. Or they'll check us, but they won't check the nations. Check the nations. They're the ones that's lying to you. You know, when I bring these lessons, y'all notice something. I don't bring not one lesson without scriptures to back it up. And I get questioned and checked more than these nations. Y'all checking the wrong one. And all you're doing is slowing me down, which slows you down. At this day and time, we need to be picking up the pace, not slacking. We need to pick up the pace. Things is about to get real ugly and real nasty real quick. And too many of our people are stuck in books that the nations provided. Now watch, somebody's going to write in, well, how do you know the book you got, the nation's name? Yeah, they tamper with every book. But the ones they took out was the one they were most concerned about. The ones that they tamper with that we have, they only did so much. It was not as great as the hiding of all the important books because they figured, well, they're not going to check it. There was an old saying I heard a long time ago. If you want to hide something from a Negro, put it in a book. Why? Because they don't read. Shalom, Israel. Please wake up.